Do you really need all those fake leaves laying around your tank? Good morning, Reptiles. Welcome back to my channel. So I've been getting a lot of comments lately about the amount of enrichment that I have in my tanks. And so I thought I'd go ahead and make a video on what exactly is enrichment and why it's so important. As many of you guys may know, I absolutely despise controversy, and controversial topics are usually things that I stay away from. But I felt like this was really important, and like I said, I've been getting a lot of comments and questions about it lately, so I thought I'd go ahead and make a video on this super important topic. So to start off, what is enrichment? Enrichment is a lot of things, but essentially it is providing something for your reptile to do. So it's not just sitting in an empty box all the time. This can be done a lot of different ways, and we'll get into that. But really quick, just basic information about enrichment. Your reptiles need it. One of the biggest downfalls to reptile keeping is that a lot of people still think that the plants in an animal's tank are just extra decoration that are unnecessary, but that is indeed not true at all. Just like if you have a dog, you're not gonna just keep it trapped in your house with nothing to do all day. You're gonna get that dog toys and take it for walks, or let it run in your backyard, or let it play in a sprinkler. Like, you give your dog things to do because you know that they get bored and they want things to do. And that same principle goes for reptiles and honestly any animal. As controversial as it may be, I don't agree with keeping animals in rack systems long term unless there's things in there. Snake Discovery does a lot of amazing things for her animals. She is my absolute favorite. She is one of the few people that I have found that keeps snakes and things in rack systems, and she keeps bedding in there for them, and she keeps multiple hides in there for them. She'll put rocks and sticks and fake leaves and all of this stuff in these rack systems, and to me that is the coolest thing in the whole world, that she is able to have that breeder mentality, but also bring in enrichment and create a good life for these animals while she has them, and that's super cool. Just to make sure I'm understood here, I don't expect a big breeder to keep every single baby animal in a fully decorated cage. I understand that in situations like that, those breeders are gonna have those animals for a very short amount of time, and they have to make sure that that animal is using the bathroom correctly, and they have to make sure that animal is shedding correctly, and they have to make sure that it's growing correctly, and they have to keep an eye on all this stuff very closely while that animal is a teeny tiny baby. Then it's just prepared to be shipped off to their forever homes. I completely understand that. I don't expect in that situation every tank to be a fully decorated tank. I understand that. But in a forever home, I do think enrichment should be provided for every reptile. So a setup that has a bunch of enrichment is going to be one where there's lots of fake plants, or there's lots of different hides. If your animal is an arboreal animal, there's lots of places for them to climb. If it's a burrowing reptile, then there's lots of places for them to burrow. It's gonna have things from their natural environment. In keeping reptiles, one of the biggest things that we try to do is to replicate natural environments, and to do that you have to have things from natural environments, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go to the rainforest and pluck a tree and put it in a tank, but in a rainforest, an arboreal reptile will have a lot of foliage to hide in and to climb through, and they'll have branches that they can climb on and places to hide and all of this stuff. So you want to provide as best you can those things for them while they're in captivity. Setting up animal tanks is my absolute favorite thing in the world to do, because it gives me the opportunity to give that animal a slice of their natural habitat, and I think it's the coolest thing in the world, and it looks wonderful also, and that's a huge plus. But for the animal, it is the coolest thing in the world that they have their little rainforest or their little desert in their tanks. There was a study done in an aquarium in Sarasota, Florida back in 2007 that did a really good job of seeing the effects of enrichment on sea turtles, which I thought was super cool. Basically, they gave a control group of sea turtles no enrichment, and they gave another group of sea turtles a lot of enrichment in order to see what the differences is in their behavior. And the study found that the group that was given no enrichment would just swim around in circles in order to give themselves something to do, which is so sad to me. And then of course the group that was given enrichment just played with their enrichment, and they didn't swim around in circles. They had things to do. In my head, I equate this a lot to thinking about prisoners. A human can live in a prison cell. We can do it, and prisoners do it every single day, but they have nothing to do, and that's a form of punishment. They live that way. They are provided with a roof over their head and air conditioning and heat and food, but they're not happy. When I think of animals that don't have any enrichment, that's the first thing I think about, because yes, that snake or that lizard may be living, it's getting its food, it has a shelter, but it's not thriving, and studies have shown that animals in those conditions don't live as long. Another huge reason that you want to give your animals enrichment is exercise. It's going to give them exercise. A lot of reptiles tend to be very overweight, and that's because they don't have anything to do. If your arboreal animal has nowhere to climb, it could become overweight. If your burrowing animal can't burrow, it's gonna just lay around and have nothing to do. Just like in the wild, that animal's not just gonna sit there all day. In the wild, it's gonna come out of that hide and it's gonna hunt for its food and it's gonna explore, and you want to give your animal that same opportunity. Like I've said before, Percy, when I gave her her dig box, her entire outlook on life changed. She went from just lazing around her tank to getting up every single night and digging. When I had to put Sterling on a sterile setup for his eyes to heal, he was so bored and it made me so sad. He would just come out and just lay in the middle of his tank and he had nothing at all to do, and it broke my heart every single day. And as soon as his eyes healed up and I was able to put all that stuff back in his tank, he instantly started exploring again and started being active again, and it's just crazy that night and day difference that happens. One place that you can see this at work is at zoos. Zoos usually have huge elaborate setups for their reptiles that mimic that animal's natural habitat as closely as it can. That's because these people are zoologists. They went to school for this. They know that having enrichment for their animals makes them live longer and healthier. So what is enrichment? Enrichment is a lot of things. Enrichment can be something as simple as going to the Dollar Tree and getting Tupperware containers and fake leaves and fake flowers for your animal to root around in. It can be something as simple as switching up the foods you're feeding them, so not always feeding mealworms or not always feeding crickets or dubia roaches. Just add some variety in there. In my tanks, I like to add a lot of enrichment. So in tanks that aren't bioactive, there's a lot of hides and foliage, fake plants. If it's a burrowing species, they have a lot of substrate that they can burrow in, and I switch up their food. I also will rearrange the tank, because rearranging a reptile's tank gives them enrichment. It gives them something to think about. They are now trying to learn a new environment and get comfortable in a new environment, relearning their surroundings and making themselves more hides and all of this stuff. In my bioactive tanks, I don't really rearrange those tanks, but in a bioactive tank, the plants are always growing and they're always full, and the animals are able to root around the plants and hide and root around in leaf litter. Something like leaf litter provides enrichment because animals can hide under it and they crunch over it and it makes sounds. And in bioactive tanks, there's cleanup crews, so these animals are coming into contact with little moving bugs that are cleaning up their tank, and it provides enrichment. If you're wanting to find enrichment for your animal that is super cheap, you can go to a local river or a local forest. Definitely check your state laws and make sure you're not doing anything illegal, but you can gather driftwood and rocks and things like that. Just make sure that you sanitize them by baking them in the oven or soaking them in a very watered down bleach solution or boiling them, but you can put those things into your tank and that provides you free enrichment for your animal, and you can find some really cool pieces that way too. This is also why it's so important to give your animal variety when feeding them, because that is also enrichment. When it comes to things like snakes, if you want to give them enrichment, you can't really switch up their foods for most species, but you can hide it. If the rat is warm enough and your snake is a good eater, you can actually hide the rat in their tank. You can put it in a hide, you can put it under driftwood or whatever, and they will actually come out and they'll look for that food. Another amazing way to give your animal enrichment is to take them out of their tank if they're an animal that can be taken out of tanks. So snakes and bearded dragons, leopard geckos, you can actually set them up a little play area if it's safe in your house. If you have cats or things like that that are gonna attack them, then please don't do that. You can set them up little play areas and put like little cat toys or fake leaves or driftwood or whatever in there for them to just run around and play in for a little bit every day. A lot of times I'll have an animal on my shoulder or wrapped around my neck or whatever, just to kind of give them some time out of their tank and give them something to think about. But that's really all I have to say on that, guys. Like I said, I've just been getting a lot of comments about the amount of enrichment that I have in my tanks and questions about keeping animals in rack systems and stuff like that. So I thought that I would just let you guys know my personal opinion on all of that. If you're gonna get an animal, please provide it with enrichment. Like I said, I know that they can live without it. They can live in an empty tub in a rack system, but just like you wouldn't want to live in prison, we don't want to make our animals live in a cage with absolutely nothing to do. If you are keeping your animals in tubs, just go to the Dollar Tree and grab some leaves, or go to your local river and grab some rocks and sticks and throw in there, and I promise you, your animal will start acting completely different. But that's about it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you do to give your animal enrichment. I am always looking for new ideas to give my animals more things to do. If you notice before I get the comment, yes, I have been wearing these same clothes for 3 videos now, and that is because I am doing all 3 of these last videos at the same time because I am in Iowa. So next week, I should have on different clothes. But anyway, if you're not already, feel free to follow me on my other socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every time I put out a new video, which is every Sunday and Wednesday. This week's Instagram shout out goes to KCStunna82 for following me on Instagram while doing like a whole bunch of stuff. You are the bee's knees. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. Do box all the time. This can be by putting extra. There was actually a study done. Let me see. Let me get the details. Let's get the details of that study. Tanks.